I just want to let you know I'll be doing your SAP HANA demonstration with Business Objects Data Services and also BW on top of HANA. Alright. Before we start, just a few things that you should remember. You do not have the organizer access for now, so you will not be able to unmute yourself to ask any questions. So do not worry. The session will be recorded for you. In case you have any questions, type it in the chat menu, or you have an option called raise your hand on the go to meeting right under the attendee list. Alright, so you can raise your hand. I'll be able to unmute you so that you can ask questions if you do not understand. Alright, the audio, you should be selecting the microphone and speakers so that you'd be able to hear. Alright, so if any of you have any trouble, just let me know. Murali Krishna, I hope you are able to hear me because we don't see the microphone on your this thing. Alright. I do not know the background you're coming from, but I'll try to start from a very fundamental point. Alright, we will start understanding the SAP HANA first, then we'll look at different kinds of data provisioning, and then we will look at BW and BW on HANA. Alright, so these are some of the topics that we're going to cover during this training program. We'll come back to that and see what we're going to look at. But this is basically the SAP HANA in-memory appliance roadmap. Alright. Now, all of you know what HANA is, I believe. HANA is High Performance Analytical Appliance. So this is a combination of hardware and software, but on the intrinsic side, SAP HANA is a database. All right. Now you must have seen and worked on different databases like Oracle, SQL, Microsoft SQL Server. All right. So these are all different databases. SAP HANA is also something very similar to that, but the only difference is this is an in-memory database. Alright, an in-memory database does not hold data inside the hard drive, but you have all of that data stored on the RAM. And here, this HANA in-memory database is used for real-time reporting. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of real-time reporting? Basically, real-time reporting means that we want to have reports as they happen. Okay, so it's not that we're going to look at data later on, but we want to look at data as it happens. Okay, so why do we have to have data at real time? So let me give you a little background of what we are trying to achieve here. Okay, now we have the, let me just show it to you on an Excel. Alright, if you go into the so once you register, all of you will be given access like this to a remote system. You'll be able to access the system. You'd have HANA data services, BW on top of HANA, all of that integrated on the system. So before we look at the system, just to give you a little background. Right. Now, in an enterprise, you basically will have two major kinds of systems. One is the OLTP system, and which is basically used for transactional processing. Okay. In SAP, one of the most common systems that you use for OLTP is called as the ECC. ECC stands for Enterprise Central Component. All your basic functions happen here, your FI or SD or MM or QA or HR, PP, all of these different functions happen here. Alright, this is basically the area where your daily transactions happen. Now, the transactions, when I say transaction happen, what happens is you would be interacting and then you will have business transactions that will be created. They'll be stored in tables and once the decision maker wants to look at a report, he can run reports on here itself. Alright, but in case you run a report, this will cause issues to the performance because this is a transaction processing system basically optimized for handling daily transactions. This is not an analytical system. So SAP brought in another system to handle analytics, and that is called as BW. Alright, so I brought in SAP BW as an analytical system. These systems basically are grouped or called as OLAP system, Online Analytical Processing System, and SAP's solution for analytics was BW. In BW, it was basically kept independent of the transaction system, but the only dependency was all that data that is processed in the entire day was brought into the BW system at the end of the day. Okay, so you had a process of bringing that data into the BW system, and that process we call that as ETL, extraction, transformation, and loading. All right. So in very straightforward method, what we have done is at the end of the business day, whatever data was collected, all that data was pushed into the BW environment. From here, you had something called as extractors that SAP developed, or you could develop on individual tables, and you could move that entire data into the BW environment. The only catch was whatever data that we are processing through the day, you are going to transfer all of that data in the night, and you will be only looking at reports in the next day. Alright, so there is a lag of at least 12 to 24 hours on looking at your report. Okay, so if a business decision maker is trying to look at his data, he's going to look at it of whatever happened in the last 24 hours. He's not able to look at that as it happens. Okay, within BW you have where you want to bring data from here and then load it into BW. You have multidimensional models like InfoCubes, DSOs, which are basically similar to table structures, flat structures. You have virtual providers, multi-providers, which are like joins, info sets, and a lot other objects in here. The basic objects like fields you have is called as info objects. Once data is stored here, now all the data that is required is in here, so it is independent of this system. You can run your reports in here, but only thing is it's going to take more than 12 hours from what the transaction happened to the next time you're going to look at your data as a report. Okay. Now, so the industry is moving to a time where they want to look at data at a real time. Okay, they don't want to look at data of some of the companies still want to look at data, the best kind of modeling, analytics. These can be represented on BW. But if you want to look at data at real time, so you should have some kind of a mechanism to bring the data from the ECC system at real time into BW, or you need to have another system which can do that. And there came the solution called as SAP Hana. SAP Hana is basically a bridge between the OLTP and the OLAP. Alright. So this is basically the idea of SAP Hana is to bring data at real time into and report on top of it. Okay. The SAP Hana system is not just a software, it is not just a hardware also, it's a combination of software and hardware. The hardware is provided by SAP's partner vendors, whereas the software is developed by SAP itself. Alright, so the hardware is extremely powerful hardware that we're going to use in here, and I'll talk about that just in a bit. So what SAP HANA does is, whenever the transaction system is processing data, data is immediately moved into SAP HANA as it happens. Alright, and that is the biggest concern because SAP HANA is a database. Alright, now a database cannot generate data by itself. It has to process the data that is brought from an OLTP system or an OLAP system. So what you need here is the data is created here in the transaction processing system, but it should be processed in the SAP HANA box, which means that you need that data in here. So the data in here needs to be moved into SAP HANA as well. And this concept here in SAP HANA is called as data provisioning. Alright, so we call that as data provisioning. And for data provisioning, you have at least 3 different methods. Okay, depending on the urgency at which you want the data to be in SAP HANA, so you have at least 3 methods. Once data is in SAP HANA, the processing is extremely fast. You do not have hard drive, you will have all the data stored on the RAM. So data is always available. Your processing happens under a second, so you can process over 400 billion rows of data in under 1 second. So that is the speed of processing that you have in SAP HANA. But it means that you have to bring that data into HANA first. Alright, so there are 3 major data provisioning methods to bring data from ECC or any transaction system into SAP HANA. The first one is SLT, SAP's Landscape Transformation Server. The second one is Business Objects Data Services. The third one is Sybase. Okay. SLT is a real-time replication service aimed at moving data at real time into SAP HANA. Alright, so this server is called SAP's Landscape Transformation Server. Alright, the second option that you have is Business Objects Data Services. One of the most commonly used replication engines is BODS. The reason for that is, though this is a near real-time replication, the rule says that when you bring data into SAP HANA, try to handle the transformation and cleansing in the data provisioning environment itself. Meaning when you're moving data from here into SAP HANA, in case there is some transformation you want to handle, you handle it here. In case you want to cleanse the data, you can do it here. The problem with SLT is all of that should be handled using ABAP, which is a little difficult for a lot of consultants. Business Objects Data Services is a very graphical environment, very simple to use, very transparent system. Everything is already created, you just need to know what transformations you won't need to handle in there. It also has the capability of data quality. Alright, so you can even bring in the best quality data into SAP HANA. So majority of times Business Objects Data Services is used as a replication engine into SAP HANA. So we'll look quite in detail about Business Objects Data Services, how to go ahead and replicate data into SAP HANA, what capability do we have when we want to connect different source systems. So it might not always be an ECC system, you might have some third-party or Oracle or database or even flat files to bring into SAP HANA. In those scenarios, how would you use Business Objects Data Services? Because the rest of them do not work with any other systems. The third option that you have is Sybase. Sybase is when you can connect a database to SAP HANA to replicate data into SAP HANA. Okay, so it is not on a regular basis you use Sybase. This is called by SAP on an invite, and they will install this Sybase replication so that you can replicate from databases onto SAP HANA. Now once you move into SAP HANA, once you move the data into SAP HANA, you will store them on the persistence layer. Okay, just give me one quick moment, please. Once you move data into SAP HANA, you will move them onto the persistence layer. Okay. This is the only time where you are going to load data into SAP HANA. Right. The rest of the times what you're going to do is you are going to use views here. First thing that they will decide is what are the real-time reports that we want to use. Okay. And based on the reports that you want to look at, the reports are built on data, right? And data is stored in tables. So you will choose what tables you need to bring into SAP HANA. So an example of it is, let's say you are trying to bring in some data relating to SAP or ECC, some finance tables. So you will have to bring in the tables from here, like in case you want to bring something from BSEG, BKPF and other tables. So on SAP, these tables are on a schema. They are linked one with the other. Okay. But when we bring these tables individually into SAP HANA, you will have to relate them. You have to manually relate them. And also, these tables have a lot of fields. So each table has somewhere around 100 to 150 fields. Alright. And most of the times we don't use all of these fields. So you can choose what fields you want to use in these views in here. So dimensions are created here, and these are called as attribute views. The star schema model that we create here are called as analytic views, and something called as multi-providers, basically trying to link multiple areas like finance and sales. When you want to bring a cross-application report, you could use to connect and create or you can connect multiple models of analytic views or attribute views. Basically, to create complex joins, you have calculation views. These are the three models that you can create in SAP HANA. Alright. So all of these are just views. They do not hold data. Only the persistence layer is where you will see data, and this data is stored on the RAM. And you will make use of the data trying to build views in here, and we will go ahead and report, or these views are consumed on the reporting layer. SAP HANA does not have a proprietary reporting tool. It uses different reporting tools like MS Excel, or it uses business objects reporting tools. It uses, or you could deploy Lumira or predictive analytics on top of SAP HANA. Alright. So you have a great variety of reporting tools on here. Alright. In case you want to process data at a very fast rate from BW, you can go ahead and bring these models of InfoCubes or DSOs or multi-providers. You can move them into SAP HANA, or you can move your models from SAP HANA into BW. Alright. Now, one more small thing that I would want to say. Now, BW is an application, and it uses a database at the underlying layer. Alright. Majority of times SAP uses Oracle as an underlying database. What we are going to do with versions BW 7.3 and version BW 7.4 is we're going to replace this database, Oracle database, with the SAP HANA database. Alright. So here we're going to migrate, or we're going to move out the Oracle database, and we're going to bring in the SAP HANA database. Alright. This can work only with BW 7.3 Service Pack 5 upwards and BW 7.4 versions. Okay. So in this scenario, what happens is the SAP HANA database supports only star schema model, whereas BW supports the extended star schema model. So there's a conflict. So you will have to upgrade the system or upgrade the application to accommodate this SAP HANA database. Alright, and you will see that there will be a little change in these objects here, like the info cubes, the DSOs, in the way they're going to use this database. Okay, so we'll talk about those scenarios as well. With this basic backdrop, I'll try to explain what we're going to look at during this course. Alright, so SAP HANA is, if you're looking at it, there are two major divisions of how SAP HANA can be used. As an appliance, the first scenario is how to use it as an appliance. The appliance means bring in hardware and software. You need to procure that, and the hardware is basically built in a very powerful manner by SAP's partner vendors. They'll be able to create all the servers. You will have a RAM capability very high. Alright, and we're going to use that with SAP software, which is called as SAP HANA Studio, and so together both of them will work. Alright, so here in the appliance, again, the heart of the appliance is the in-memory computing engine. Again, all of this is a database. So you need to process and move data into the SAP HANA appliance. Unless you cannot move the data into SAP HANA appliance, data will not be processed in here. Data will not be produced if you don't go ahead and move the data into SAP HANA appliance. So you can bring in data not just from ECC, you can bring in data from other systems as well. It could be Oracle, it could be BW, it could be flat files. Be it any system, you need to bring the data into SAP HANA. And you need different kinds of data provisioning methods to move data into SAP HANA. Once data is in SAP HANA, data is processed extremely fast. You have these views that you create in here as a modeling technique, and then on top of them you have these reporting tools, either business objects reporting tools or MS Excel reporting or Lumira or predictive analytics. Going further on, the SAP HANA is a hardware and a software combination that integrates the number of SAP components. Alright, this is a flexible data source agnostic appliance that enables customers to analyze large volumes of SAP ERP data at real time, avoiding the need to materialize transformations. Now what we're doing in SAP HANA is basically bridging the OLTP and the OLAP systems. Alright, you cannot say that it has the best modeling techniques like the OLAP system like BW, but basically it is able to cater to the basic requirements of decision making at real time. The biggest idea here is that when we are trying to bring data from a transaction system and we're trying to report it on BW, it's going to take a lag of at least 12 to 24 hours. We don't want to do that, but we want to report it as it happens. Alright, so so we're trying to bridge that using the SAP HANA system where we're going to report it at real time. Alright, so that gives you the ability to change the strategy in case you have some kind of so let's say in this example somebody is trying to do a transaction and they have incurred a loss of, let's say, $1 million. So if you're going by BW, you're going to look at that loss in tomorrow's report. You will only know about that only in tomorrow's report. Whereas if you're using SAP HANA, the moment there is that loss that loss is going to start happening, you would be able to look at it on your report. You will have alerts. And so you would try to change the strategy of how you want to do business as it happens immediately. Alright, so you can recover at least some part of the loss that you've made. Alright, so you could go ahead and do that on SAP HANA, whereas in BW that loss would have happened, and then you will have to come up with some strategy to recover that. So what we are doing in SAP HANA is basically giving the decision maker the ability to look at his data at real time so that he can make strategic decisions to counter or improve his business at real time. In this particular mode, you have the entire database on the RAM. You have a combination of row stores and column storage in SAP HANA database. Now we are used to this database of row stores where you read from left to right and you have all your queries on the row stores. But something much more faster than the row store is called as the column store. The column store enables you to go ahead and report on column storage. A column storage is a scenario where you are taking an individual table and you're breaking it into columns, alright, individual columns where the columns are stringed one to the other. Alright, so when you report, what happens is the fastest thing you want is your data. You want to read your data at extreme speeds, and so the column store allows you to read the data at very fast speeds. Alright, so just to give you an example of how this is going to work, let me show it to you. On a normal table here, let's say here you have data stored on a table. So each of this row is called as a tuple. This is the basic row-based storage that we are used to. Okay. On a column store, what we do is we're going to break it as individual columns, and we're going to show these columns in here. And data is stored in these columns in a compressed format. Each of these columns are indexed one to the other so that you can, when you fire a query, you can look at the data and then you can bring the entire column or the row back again. So here if you look at it, each row is called as a tuple, okay? And let's say you want to go ahead and bring in a query is fired saying what is the amount that is spent by the customer 300. So what you got to do is you will be reading from left. You come here, you see customer 100. You know that this is not the customer you're looking for, but you are compelled to read through the entire row, then go back to the second row. Similarly, you got to read this entire row, though you know this is not the customer. You come back to the first row again, and so you will come to the fourth row after you finish reading the entire 3 rows, and then you know this is your result. You will be showing this. But what we're doing in SAP HANA is we're breaking them into individual columns. Each column is treated as a table. So when you start your query, so here you would have only distinct values, 100, 200, and 300, only 3 values. In the second column, you have Germany and US, only 2 values. Product, only 2 values, only the amount is occupying the entire table. When you fire a query and you're looking for 300, the system will first come here, go into the customer table or customer column, go into 100. This is not the result. Go straight into 200 and then 300. By the third iteration, you are already at your result. Alright, so you don't have to read from left to right. The moment you see 300, the system will link the rest of the columns for the data, and then it will bring that to your presentation layer. So your reads are extremely fast because of column storage. But if you're trying to do the same thing on, say you're trying to do inserts, updates, deletes on the same thing, then you will have a little problem. Alright, so what you would be doing is that all the operations like inserts, updates, and deletes, you're trying to do it on the row store, whereas all the reads you're going to do that at the column store. Okay, so we're going to change between instances of data in the SAP HANA. So your data is stored in 2 instances, row stores and column stores. When you're handling reads, you would do it column stores. When you're handling operations, you will be doing it on the row stores. you could choose how you want to store the data as well. Okay, this is how your basic reads will happen. So going to the architecture of SAP HANA, it is available majorly in three different editions. You could the core is for SAP customers, where you would just need to install the SAP specific software, which is HANA Database, HANA Studio, Client, and Agent, and Information Composer. For customers who do not have licenses for the replication engines, the Enterprise Edition bundles just the HANA's core software along with the replication engine licenses. The third is the Extended Enterprise Extended Edition. This is for non-SAP customers who want to leverage the use of SAP's in-memory capability and real-time reporting. So they would need the core SAP HANA software. Apart from that, SAP bundles all of these reporting tools, right? And then you would go ahead and the customers can use all of the replication engines licenses based on what could be their source. They could use the replication engines. So there are three major software editions. The architecture of SAP HANA basically consists of three major layers. The first layer is called as the data provisioning layer. The second one is the in-memory computing engine. The third one is the modeling studio. Alright, so SAP HANA basically needs data to be brought into the appliance, and so you would have data being brought from either ECC, Enterprise, or you would be bringing it from an Oracle system or SAP BW or any third-party system, so SAP and non-SAP systems. So here the first option that you have is called as real-time replication service. We also call this as Sybase replication or log-based replication. This allows you to bring data from databases, and this is a real-time replication process. The only downside of it is it cannot handle transformations. The second option that you have here is called as SLT, SAP's Landscape Transformation Server. So what you do in here is you could bring in data from any SAP system, and you from Service Pack 5 onwards you could use even some databases to move into SAP HANA. It has the capability of transformation, but transformation is done in core ABAP, so it gets a little difficult. The third option is data services, which is the most commonly used replication method for moving both SAP and non-SAP data into SAP HANA. The only ETL that works with HANA to bring in data is data services. Alright, so you have the quality capability and transformation capability also on data services. The second layer that you have, once you bring this data from any of these three layers, you will be moving it into the data provisioning layer. The in-memory computing engine is the second layer, which is the heart of the system. It consists of the calculation and planning engine, and it also consists of the row and the column storage. The row and the column storage is where these replication engines will load the data, and then you have the calculation and the planning engine. Calculation engine doesn't mean just calculation, but it basically means both translation and calculation. When you're firing query from these reporting tools, either business objects or either Excel, or you might be bringing it from Lumira, so those queries should be understood by the computing engine, and so they should be on the native SQL of SAP HANA. So when you're firing these queries from here, the calculation engine basically translates it. If it's a bigger query, it breaks it down into smaller queries. It has an MDX engine. It has basically stored procedure engine. It has the SQL parser, the SQL execution. So it's a combination of multiple servers and services basically aimed at converting it into native SQL. Alright, and then you are going to process that data on the row and column storage. You also have the planning engine, basically aimed at using financial applications on top of SAP HANA. Now in the third layer is where you have the modeling studio, where you can go ahead and define models. Three models that you can create in SAP HANA. We call it as the attribute view, the analytic view, and the calculation view. So you can create these in the SAP HANA modeling studio, right? You can also create a lot of other stored procedures, decision tables, all right, privileges, all of that can be done. The interface is called as SAP HANA Studio, and you can work here. Now all the views that you create, the models that you can create here, do not store data persistently. They're just views. They do not hold data, but they will consume the data from the row and the column storage. These models itself are consumed by the reporting tools. SAP HANA does not have a proprietary reporting tool, but it uses the reporting tools on that are leveraged on top of SAP HANA, like Business Objects, MS Excel, Lumira, and Predictive Analytics. All right. So during this course, we'll try to understand the core of SAP HANA, how models are developed, how we would go ahead and do our reporting. So this basically talks about what we're going to look through. All right, the entire course content will be sent to you. We'll be looking at the architecture, what are the landscapes in here, how do we handle development quality and production environment, what is the sizing guidelines that we have in here, because it's not one server being used by all customers. It will be based on the amount of production data that you have. Right, so we'll use that. The SAP HANA Studio View, we'll try to understand the different terminology that you have in here with SAP HANA Studio View. What models can be built in here? How do we move it across landscape, exports and imports? We'll also look at how do we integrate it with business objects, reporting tools, and we'll at least generate one report on each of these things. All right. We'll also see how to handle user management if there's a single sign-on capability across the entire landscape. All right. We'll also be talking a lot on SLT replication technique. We'll be looking at a COPA business case. We'll also be looking at finance and sales cases as well. We'll be talking about sales and security and authorization, how solution manager, the role of solution manager in SAP HANA. All right. This is something relating to administration, the in-memory database, client installation, appliance, enterprise server, and all that. Now, since business objects data services is one of the main replication methods for moving data into SAP HANA, we will be understanding data services very closely. All right. So on this server, we also have, along with SAP HANA, we also have the data services latest version, data services 4.2. So we will be using how do we go ahead and use data services and how do you replicate data onto SAP HANA. So we'll try to understand that as well. All right. So here you can see SAP HANA Studio. This is the interface for using SAP HANA. The data services 4.2 interface basically uses the data services designer. So we'll be using that too during our training. Now, each of you will be given access individually, and we will be monitoring the exercises that we provide for you so that we understand what you are exactly doing and if you are able to follow the sessions that we are going to do on the system. All right. You will have quite a lot of exercises to do so that you get pretty well acquainted with the interfaces. Okay. We also have the BW component on our sessions as well. So we will be looking at understanding the core concepts of BW and also BW on top of HANA. All right. The curriculum will for data services will be just give me one moment. Basically understand how to replicate data into SAP HANA. But not only that, we'll be also be looking into how do we go ahead and use this transformation capability in business objects data services. We'll try to understand the core of it, how to build a job, what are the different components in business objects data services, what are repositories, what is multi-user environment, how to migrate projects, how do you use change data capability or delta concepts, all right? And we'll be looking at how to move data from ECC and how to move data from BW, all right? And how do we move it into HANA? There is a new concept called as the data services workbench on the lines of SAP HANA. So how do we go ahead and use that as well? All right. So we'll be looking at profiling, all right, multi-user environments when we're using business objects data services. We'll also be looking at understanding the BW on top of HANA. So this is what we will be looking at. So the course content will be sent to you for all the different components that we will be working on. All right. So the course comprises at understanding SAP HANA core, all right, along with the different components like business objects data services for understanding the replication method. We will be looking at BW as a database to understand the application and the changes on the application. We'll be talking about BW and BW on top of HANA. All right. So we'll see how to move data across from BW into SAP HANA, from HANA into SAP BW. How do we use these models and how do we report on top of these? So we'll be looking at those options as well. All right. So this is basically some of the major stuff that we'll be covering during this training. Okay. So at this point, I'm giving you time to ask questions. So if you have any questions, you could either raise your hand or you could go ahead and type it in the chat menu. I'd be able to answer that for you. All right. So you could, I have, just to give you a little overview, I have about 12 years of experience in data modeling, BW, business objects data services. HANA, I've been working for the last 4 years or 3 years on SAP HANA. So you could even ask questions from any of these areas. Alright, so here is this question, Ishan. I'm working in SAP CRM now, basic knowledge of SQL and BW required to learn SAP HANA. Yes, it should be difficult for you. You would be able to learn HANA easily. So your knowledge with SQL also will help you even better understand SAP HANA. So we would be, so the idea is to first look at core HANA, and then we will be looking at replication engine like business objects data services, and we'll be looking at BW and BW on top of HANA. All right. Any other questions, guys? Ishan, Murli, Padu, or Venkat? So any questions? So we have a session tomorrow at the same time. In the session, we're going to look at understanding HANA a little more in detail. All right. So today we kind of try to see the link between the different areas that we're going to cover during this training. But in tomorrow's session, we're going to look at HANA specific in tomorrow's session. We'll be understanding, or we'll try to understand SAP HANA as an appliance. All right. Uh, so we'll be looking at understanding the architecture and seeing what are the components that you have in SAP HANA. Is it completely a database, or is it an appliance? When you call it an appliance, what you would find in there. So we'll be looking at different servers. Now, some instructions that I would want to tell you. So we would be sending you emails on the schedules. We will be sending you emails on exercises. We'll be sending you emails on the entire uh, the PDFs that you would need to read through, alright, which is basically the material. So it will all be sent on your emails, alright, and sometimes these emails might go into your junk folder. So make sure you look at your inbox, and you will also look at the junk folder as well. So take a look at both of these so that you would be able to get the entire information. Alright, so so the information for you to call is also listed here. So I'm just going to put it up on a notepad. So in case you have any queries, you can call us on these numbers: 469-433-0066. All right. The entire video recording of this session will be sent to you, so some of you who have joined a little late, you could take a look at the video. Tomorrow's session will be where we're talking about SAP HANA individually. We'll look at how SAP HANA fits into the entire SAP landscape. Uh, what is the capability of the SAP HANA system to move data at real times? All right. So what is it that basically makes this server extremely fast? Is it just the servers that are there, or is it the software? So we'll try to understand that in that perspective. Right. So do not miss the session. Make sure you are able to. All right. Sorry about the disturbance. All right, guys. So make sure you check your email for updates. You will have, once you register, you will have the access into the servers. You'd be able to look at the servers. You would have SAP HANA. You'd have data services, access to BW on top of HANA, and we'll go and explain as to what are these different components that you have on the interface. We'll try to learn, then together you could go ahead and create exercises, and then we'll start working on them. Alright, so I hope to see all of you in tomorrow's session, same time. Then we'll understand the SAP HANA Studio and the interface in tomorrow's session. Alright guys, thank you so much. Make sure you check on or call us or send an email, check in your inbox and also your junk folder for the emails and the schedules, including the recorded session. Alright, take care and have a nice evening. Thanks for your time. Bye guys.